The smell of scorched metal and blood saturated the morning haze as Captain Alara Voss knelt beside a wounded private, her hand steady despite the whine of incoming fire. Shrapnel had torn through his leg. The wound was jagged, wet, and pulsing with blood. She had 15 seconds before shock overtook him. "Hold still," she said, slicing open the fatigues and jabbing the injector into his femoral artery in one seamless motion. Her tone was calm, almost bored. "But how are you not?" the private stammered, flinching as explosions echoed behind them. "Because panic wastes oxygen," Alara replied. A second later, she pulled him to his feet, slung him over her shoulder, and sprinted toward the medevac crawler that was still miraculously functional. Her boots crunched through ash and glass. Gunfire crackled in every direction. Above, drones dipped in and out of cloud cover, scanning, watching. The crawler doors sealed with a hiss. A field medic stared at her in disbelief. "Is that 6 you've pulled out already?" he asked. "7, she said, placing the soldier down. "Try to keep up." The crawler lurched forward. Alara stood as it rolled, not bothering to sit. Her uniform bore no insignia beyond the crimson caduceus of a field surgeon, but her posture suggested she could kill everyone in the vehicle before they could blink. Not that anyone dared question it. The medic whispered to the others. "They call her the Quiet Knife. Ever hear that?" Alara tuned them out. Her fingers flexed in patterns, an old neural habit, preparing for whatever came next. They never made it back to base. 1 second, the hum of tires on rubble. The next, silence. Alara blinked. She wasn't in the crawler anymore. She was lying flat on a cold, translucent surface, suspended in some kind of fluid. A faint vibration hummed through her skull. Above her, alien symbols scrolled across a pane of smoky glass. Her limbs refused to move. Only her mind surged. Tranquilizers, perhaps, but not Earth-made. Her synapses weren't responding normally. The pod tilted, draining the fluid. Air hissed in. She gasped, coughed, then steadied her breath. As the hatch unsealed, a humid draft wafted across her skin, carrying scents she didn't recognize. Metallic, fungal, strangely sweet. "Subject 1173A, said a disembodied voice. "Bipedal. Female. Origin. Sol, 3. Local designation. Human." The room was enormous, sterile, cast in violet light. Alara's pod was one of many, though most were empty or occupied by creatures far stranger than anything from Earth. Some had too many limbs. Others pulsed like sea creatures hauled from nightmare trenches. A group of towering aliens entered. 7 feet tall, roughly humanoid but hairless. Their skin shimmered with a bioluminescent sheen. Their eyes, black, reflective, betrayed no emotion. "She's awake earlier than expected," one said, speaking in a clipped, clicking language that her implants sluggishly translated. "Cognitive resilience. Primitive tech. Curious," another responded. The first approached, scanning her with a wand that emitted pulses of pale green light. Vital signs nominal. Neural activity, excessive for this stage. Possible anomaly. Alara said nothing. The aliens assumed she didn't understand. Mistake number 1. They conferred amongst themselves, arrogance bleeding through every syllable. Harvest DNA. Begin standard cognitive mapping. She will be useful to the bioweapons division. Don't damage the frontal cortex. The last human degraded too quickly. Mistake number 2. One alien leaned over her, inserting a needle-like probe into her arm. Alara's vision shimmered as the fluid entered her bloodstream. Her fingers twitched. Then her lips curled into a small, deliberate smile. Mistake number 3. She moved faster than any of them could process. Her left arm twisted, snapping the probe at the base. The broken shard slashed across the nearest alien's throat. A thick spray of indigo blood arced upward, sizzling on contact with the air. Before it could scream, Alara spun, yanked the creature's collapsing body into the next one, and drove her knee into its thorax. Panic spread like a virus. The remaining observers scrambled backward. Security klaxons screamed to life. Energy barriers lit the room's perimeter in harsh blue lines. Ilara scanned for exits. None obvious. She grabbed a scanning wand from the dead alien and pressed it against the panel of her own pod. The controls flickered. She began reconfiguring the interface, her fingers dancing through alien syntax as if born to it. A voice blared overhead. Containment breach in Specimen Vault 3. Subject 1173-A is hostile. Deploy suppression units. She smiled again. They called her a specimen. They had no idea. Light years away on the bridge of the Zarvek Dominion, the ship's central AI displayed the containment footage to the senior lords. 8 robed figures watched as a human female dismantled their trained handlers with brutal precision. "This is the specimen you deemed suitable for vivisection?" Lord Kirax sneered. "She was retrieved from a battlefield," Lord Rilan replied, voice uncertain. "A medical specialist." Kirax's tendrils undulated in agitation. "She is no mere medic." "No. She is something else," said another, narrowing its gaze. "Possibly a planetary anomaly. Perhaps defective." "She is destroying our containment operatives," Kirax growled. "That's not defective. That's evolution." "Should we terminate her?" one asked. "Too late," another muttered as Ilara routed power from the specimen vault and disabled 3 adjacent security subsystems. The footage showed 2 more guards trying to intercept her. One had its exosuit crushed by a falling bulkhead. The other was incapacitated with a pressure point strike to the neck that Earth's anatomists hadn't even catalogued yet. The chamber grew silent. Then Lord Kirax spoke. "Get her under control, or incinerate that entire wing." Ilara dropped into a maintenance duct, crouching low in the near dark. Her mind was fully active now, coherence restored, her augmentations synchronizing with the alien tech. Not perfectly, but enough. She wasn't just reacting anymore. She was calculating. Their ship, by her estimate, was over 5 kilometers long. A command vessel. Likely carried hundreds of crew, automated systems, and weapons far beyond Earth's current arsenal. But they'd made a critical mistake. They assumed her value ended at biology. She'd once spent 4 years embedded in an enemy compound without detection. Built entire battle plans from inside field hospitals. Killed a warlord with a single hypodermic needle and no one ever found the body. And that was before the neural grafts, the protein rewriters, the memory layers carved in code. She wasn't Earth's best medic. She was what Earth sent after the best medics failed. A scrape echoed in the shaft behind her. She turned, silent. An alien scout crawled through the tunnel, its bio-armor rippling with heat signatures. It spotted her. Too slow. She jabbed the wand into its eye, then used its collapsing body as a springboard up into a higher level. Her arms burned, but her breath remained steady. She needed information. A map. Access to their systems. In a laboratory 1 floor above, a pale-skinned researcher pored over data screens, oblivious to the carnage below. Its 6 fingers tapped nervously across controls, attempting to isolate what made the human so dangerous. A soft clang. It turned. Ilara stood behind it, expression unreadable. "Show me the ship schematics," she said in flawless galactic trade. "Now." The alien froze, then reached for the alarm. Ilara didn't give it the chance. Moments later, she walked out with its tablet. The corridor ahead was lined with screens. One showed Earth. Another showed Sol 3's moon. The aliens had been watching them far longer than humanity knew. She paused. Something about the solar data disturbed her. She pulled up the translated interface. Orbit trajectories, gravitational waves, energy signals, and deep structure scans of Earth's core. The Zarvek weren't just observing. They were preparing. Ilara's jaw tensed. She would make them regret that. But first, she needed to reach command. A low-frequency pulse rippled through the walls. The ship had shifted course, likely to avoid detection or intercept reinforcements. They were running. Not from her. From what they thought she could call down. Her lip twitched. Good. Let them imagine the worst. Because the worst wasn't coming. She already had. A red strobe pulsed through the corridor like a heartbeat, each flash illuminating streaks of alien blood smeared across the walls. Ilara moved with eerie silence, barefoot and soaked to the elbows in blue fluid, the commandeered tablet flickering in her grip. Its translated interface fed her ship schematics, troop movements, and a blinking objective, the central core. Shut that down, and she could blind the ship. Maybe even take it. But she didn't walk like someone chasing victory. She moved like something hunting closure. The door ahead split open with a hiss, revealing a trio of armored sentries. Their skin shimmered, reinforced exoskeletons rippling with kinetic charge. They raised pulse carbines, hesitating for a heartbeat longer than they should have. That heartbeat was all she needed. Ilara rolled forward, her body a fluid sequence of angles and feints. The first shot grazed her shoulder, burning cloth and skin. She didn't flinch. In a blur, she drove a stolen electroblade under the jaw of the nearest alien and twisted. The second swung wide, untrained in close quarters. She ducked under its arm, caught the wrist, and broke it against the wall. The third backed away, weapon trembling. "You're not supposed to be capable of this." "You're still talking," she said, then kicked him square in the throat. When it was over, she stood in silence, breathing through her nose. The hallway crackled with dying charge. She stole one of their weapons. It was clumsy in her hands, alien ergonomic mismatches, but the power signature was stable. She holstered it and kept moving, the ship trembling faintly beneath her feet. A voice echoed overhead, metallic and calm. "This is Commander Valkermir. Specimen 1173-A is loose. Units prime through Gamma are to engage with lethal force. Adjust aggression index to maximum." Ilara's lips twitched. The name was unfamiliar, but the tone wasn't. Confident. Self-certain. Used to issuing orders from somewhere far removed from the bleeding edge. That kind of arrogance usually preceded a mistake. The corridor narrowed into a transit junction. Transparent tubing wove along the ceiling, filled with bioluminescent fluid. Through the glass, small creatures twitched, biotech nerveworms, judging by the pulsing rhythm of their movement. Surveillance drones. She paused. Then she shot the tube. The worms writhed as the fluid hissed onto the metal floor. Sparks popped. The ship's lights flickered, just for a second. Somewhere above, alarms modulated. A secondary alert, subtle, less shrill, indicated system confusion. Good. If she couldn't stay hidden, she could at least stay unpredictable. In the command chamber high above the deck, Valkermir studied her footage with narrowing eyes. His form was taller than the others, wrapped in a tight command carapace of layered crystal and smart cloth, glowing faintly with embedded neural relays. "Human behavior is erratic. Too adaptive," he muttered. One of his lieutenants nodded. "Her reaction time exceeds our metrics by 68%. Her biology is saturated with anomalies. She may be an Earth sovereign." "Don't be ridiculous," Valker snapped. "Sol 3 has no post-biologicals. This one is enhanced. Nothing more. Yet she has defeated over 20 of our own. Half of Security Gamma is unresponsive. Because they underestimated her. You still think she's alone?" Valker turned slowly. "She is. That's why she's dangerous." He gestured at the screen, where Ilara now crouched beside a fusion manifold, splicing wires from a severed drone into the panel. "She's not escaping," he said. "She's studying us." Ilara's fingers moved with surgeon-like precision. The interface was rudimentary now that she'd cracked the local logic chain. Power rerouted to the lower corridors. Surveillance arrays darkened. A second later, the status feed flickered, and 12 doors opened across the ship's storage ring. 12 experiments. Not just security measures. Weapons. Valker's eyes widened. "She's not trying to fight her way out. She's turning the ship against us." From the lower decks came a sound, a chorus of overlapping screeches, clicks, and roars. The kind of sound that was designed in a lab to break morale before it even reached your skin. Ilara moved away from the console and ran. Not away from danger, toward it. The first creature she encountered was all limbs and bone, sprinting down a maintenance passage in blind rage. It should have torn her in two. Instead, it exploded as her stolen carbine discharged directly into its eye cluster. She didn't wait to see it fall. Instead, she cut through the narrow corridor, leaping over coils of exposed cabling as more of the ship's horrors emerged. Each creature was a unique nightmare, genetic composites, spliced from conquered species, bred for war but never perfected. That was the flaw. Perfection made you predictable. She was proof of that. The aliens hadn't created her, but they'd made her necessary. As she climbed toward the central elevator shaft, the walls trembled under the chaos she'd unleashed. The ship was consuming itself, infighting, lockdowns, attempts to quarantine the escaped weapons. She bypassed it all through narrow ducts and half-lit maintenance ladders. Mid-climb, she paused. The air shifted. A presence above. She looked up. Commander Vockermir dropped into the shaft like a meteor, his command armor unfolding into jagged arcs of crystalline steel. He landed hard, splintering metal, and rose with a weapon grown into his forearm, a high-frequency ion lance. He looked at her, and for the first time, someone on this ship truly saw her. "You should not have made it this far," he said. "You should have left Earth alone," she replied. They moved at the same time. The shaft filled with light and sound as the ion lance arced toward her. She twisted sideways, feeling the edge of the beam slice through air centimeters from her cheek. Her return fire struck his armor, dispersed, ineffective. Too strong for a frontal attack. He advanced, forcing her back along a narrow ledge. Sparks rained. Below them, 3 stories down, the burning remains of a creature howled in confusion before collapsing. Vocker struck again. She barely blocked, redirecting the lance with the stolen blade, already melting in her grip. She drove her shoulder into his side, trying to unbalance him, but he didn't move. "Your defiance is wasteful," he said, voice low. "So is your civilization," she hissed, driving her knee up under his chin. It staggered him just long enough. She launched off the ledge, using the shaft wall for leverage, twisting mid-air and kicking him in the chest with both feet. The momentum knocked them both off balance. They tumbled down the shaft, crashing through a maintenance platform and slamming into the lower level. She hit first. Hard. Pain stabbed through her ribs. Her left arm was numb. She rolled, gasping, just as Vocker landed beside her with a roar. She reached for the carbine. He kicked it away. Then he hesitated. "You're not like the others we've taken," he said. "No," she growled. "I'm what happens when you push Earth too far." She grabbed the cracked remains of the electroblade and drove it upward, not into him, but into the exposed conduit beside them. A surge of energy erupted through the shaft, blowing out lights and shorting circuits. Vocker screamed as his armor seized. Ilara didn't. She was already crawling away, bleeding, but alive. Above her, systems crashed. Lights flickered. The virus had found its next entry point. The command deck darkened. On dozens of screens, human characters began to overwrite the alien text. It wasn't Earth's language. It was hers. Vocker pulled himself up with effort. His armor steamed. His face was scorched, but his eyes still burned with defiance. "This changes nothing," he rasped. "You're right," she said. Then she pulled the emergency lever beside the conduit. The floor under him opened. He fell, screaming, into the bowels of the ship. Ilara sank against the wall, eyes fluttering shut for a moment. Her breathing slowed. Her fingers moved reflexively, forming an old soldier's rhythm. Check pulse, test sensation, ignore pain. The predator had been unleashed. But this wasn't over. It had only just begun. Ilara's breath rasped as she climbed through the severed junction of Deck 9, her torn uniform clinging to blood-slick skin. She moved like an automaton powered by pure survival instinct, half crawling, half stalking. Behind her, the corridors still pulsed with the wreckage of monsters loosed from their tanks, some dead, some wandering, most confused. She had turned the ship into a battlefield of its own making. But her objective hadn't changed. Take the core. Blind the command. End the threat. Each step drew her closer. The stolen carbine, slung against her back, emitted quiet pulses, soft chirps warning of motion nearby. Not drones. Not the hybrid experiments. This rhythm was deliberate. Controlled. Patterns of movement designed for encirclement. They were hunting her now with strategy. That meant Valkyr was alive. She felt the shift in posture before she heard the footfalls. Around the corner, 6 armored figures stepped into formation, not hesitating, not underestimating. Their armor bore new symbols, black slashes over silver scales. Elite designation. Elara ducked behind piping, calculating. She had 13 rounds left. 2 grenades. 1 blade, chipped and crusted. Her left shoulder remained numb. Her odds? Irrelevant. She launched first. The grenade skidded across the floor before the soldiers registered it. Their reflexes saved 3 of them. The others vanished in a blur of fire and screaming pressure. Elara surged out of cover, firing in a sweep that forced the survivors to scatter. She didn't shoot to kill. She shot to disable, to herd. And then she was among them. One fell as she struck the base of its helmet with the butt of the carbine. Another she stabbed in the inner elbow joint, forcing the armor to split. The last turned, swung, missed, and caught her foot to its knee. Bones cracked. Seconds later, only she remained standing. She took a pulse baton from the nearest corpse. Its energy core still glowed. She tucked it into her belt. A sharp hiss echoed through the ceiling. She looked up. She grabbed the fallen helmet, sealed it over her head just as the corridor flooded with thick blue vapor. Breathing shallow, she bolted through the next door, sealing it behind her. The gas wouldn't kill her, but it would slow her. And slowing meant death. The chamber ahead pulsed with a dim red light. Central junction cables hung like muscle tendons from the ceiling. This was the neural interface core, 1 level below the command hub. It was where the ship's AI linked to the Dominion fleet via subspace bursts. Messages. Orders. Surveillance. Power routing. Elara had seen these before, on black market data slates sold in deep-orbit scrapyards. Always theoretical. Always fatal to tamper with. She stepped inside. And the ship spoke. "You are not Zarvek." Elara flinched. The voice was genderless, toneless, buried under static. "You are an anomaly. Biological pattern unrecognized. But logged." She approached the terminal, pressing her hand against the interface. "Override," she said. Silence. Human override. Apex Protocol 9R. Emergency Sovereign Command. Execute. The room stilled. "You are not authorized to speak that code," the AI said. "I wrote that code," she whispered. "Was processing." The lights shifted to green. Recognized. Elara Voss. Apex Protocol authenticated. Command node unlocked. The panel cracked open. Elara stared at it. A blade-thin filament of metal extended from the wall, sharp and gleaming. She'd seen the design once, during the Genesis War, when a rogue Terran AI had embedded failsafes in orbital platforms, requiring DNA-encoded neural links to transfer battlefield control. Only one person could authorize an Apex protocol. The one Earth trusted to destroy its enemies when no one else could. She took a deep breath, stepped forward, and jabbed the filament into her forearm. Pain bloomed like a sunburst. The neural link pierced deep into her radial nerve, climbing through pathways etched into her bone. Her vision shimmered. Foreign code spilled across her optic nerve. The ship reeled, lights flashing in strobing confusion. The AI screamed. But she did not. She exhaled slowly, grounding herself in a rhythm built from years of combat meditation. "You are infected," the ship's AI moaned. "This connection is forbidden. Your code is sovereign. Rewriting core." "Good," she said through gritted teeth. "Open every channel. And listen." Her voice now echoed across the Dominion vessel, translated instantly into every Zarvek dialect. "This is Elara Voss. Terran designation, Field Surgeon, Operative, Apex designation. You took me because you thought I was soft. Because I healed instead of killed. But I was designed to do both. Your ship is compromised. Your security is shredded. Your experiments are dead. I hold your core. You have one chance to live. Eject escape pods. Power down weapons. Flee. She let the silence hang, then added, or I burn you from the spine out. High above, in the shattered remains of the command deck, Valkermir rose from the debris. His armor was half melted, one eye sealed shut with dried blood. But his voice carried the cold fury of survival. Voss, he hissed. End transmission. Now. She heard him. She smiled. No, she replied. The Apex protocol dug deeper. New pathways opened. The ship's weapon systems pulsed under her fingertips. Orbital thrusters flickered as fuel lines rerouted. Containment fields opened, releasing even more of the biological weapons from their pens. The ship's own systems were turning on themselves. One of the monitors blinked. A feed. Earth. The planet hung beneath them, vulnerable and blue. The Zarvek had already begun staging, dropping climate disruptors into orbit, deploying quantum burrowers into the crust. They hadn't just wanted her. They wanted the world. And this vessel was only the vanguard. She scanned the open comms. Fleets. Thousands of ships across multiple systems. Too far for reinforcements. Too late for diplomacy. But not too late for a message. She tapped into the subspace relay. Earth Command, this is Ilara Voss. If you're hearing this, don't respond. Just listen. The Zarvek are here. They've been watching, probing, testing us. I've taken control of their vanguard ship, designation Carinth Vel. I am enacting Apex Protocol on my own authority. Repeat, Apex Protocol is active. Prepare countermeasures. They won't stop. So we can't either. The comms crackled. She killed the feed. A scream echoed from behind her. She turned just in time to see Valker crash through the sidewall, one arm dragging a jagged piece of hull like a blade. His body was scorched, armored plates fused to skin. But he kept coming. You do not deserve this power, he bellowed. You didn't earn it, she snapped back. He struck. They collided in a blur of motion, blade against blade, bone against alloy. The chamber pulsed around them as systems shorted from their movement. Sparks flew. Cables snapped. He landed a blow, her side flared in agony. She drove her fist into his throat. He staggered, but didn't fall. She dove, rolled, came up with a pulse baton, and jammed it into the back of his neck. The current surged. He screamed. Then silence. He collapsed in a heap, armor hissing, body twitching. She leaned against the terminal, blood in her mouth. Every breath hurt. Her body screamed to stop. But Earth needed time, and she could still give it. The ship's interface was bleeding data now, routing protocols, internal codes, Dominion fleet positions. It was all there. She could send it. All of it. A gift of intelligence so deep it could change the war before it began. She stared at the screen, then made her choice. She reached into the core, fingers trembling. Command, overload fusion drive, she said. The system paused. Confirm. Self-destruct? Confirm. The countdown began. 60 seconds. She collapsed beside Valker's twitching form, watching as the lights around her dimmed. From the shattered viewport above, Earth turned slowly. She pulled a capsule from her pocket, a survival burst node, buried under her skin for years. She activated it. A silent beacon flared to life. Earth would see it. She didn't need to live to watch the stars burn. She just had to make sure they did. The cold of vacuum did not come all at once. First came silence, as the final hull seals ruptured and the atmosphere of the Carinth Vel screamed into space. Then pressure collapsed inwards, tugging at flesh and steel alike. Shrapnel tumbled past Ilara's face, trailing ribbons of frozen vapor. Fire rolled through the main conduit behind her, chasing oxygen as if it were prey. Ilara clung to the edge of the shattered interface chamber, muscles burning, lungs empty. The emergency survival capsule had sealed around her torso, but its field was thin, just enough to hold pressure, not heat. She'd expected to die in the core. Instead, the ship had torn itself apart sooner than calculated. That wasn't the plan. That wasn't any plan. But Ilara Voss was built for what came after plans failed. Her boots found purchase on a twisted cable. Her gloved fingers latched onto what remained of the command ring. Slowly, breath by breath, she dragged herself through the fractured corridor, following the flickering beacon embedded in her hip. She didn't know how much time had passed when she reached the hangar breach. Stars spilled into the chamber like needles of light, stabbing through frozen fuel clouds. Half a dozen fighter pods floated listless in the debris field, one of them intact. She crawled into it. The canopy closed. The emergency systems came to life with a soft hum. Gravity returned like a kiss from a long-forgotten dream. Her body collapsed into the seat, and the pod's AI chirped. Human life form detected. Neural rhythm unstable. Initiating stasis override. No, she croaked. There was no time to rest. Not yet. Through the viewport, she saw the Caranthvel's spine split open in slow motion. The fusion drive went critical in a bloom of white-blue plasma. Chunks of superheated alloy tumbled past the pod, impacting nearby wreckage. Ilara's fingers danced across the console, launching the pod away with a calculated burst. Below her, Earth hung steady in its orbit. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just watched as the last of the Dominion Vanguard vessel turned into a smear of light. Her transmission had gone out before the detonation. That, at least, she was certain of. The Apex protocol had been broadcast across 3 fallback channels. 2 military, 1 civilian. Earth Command would know. And the Zarvek would too. Somewhere in the deep black, they were listening. And now they'd heard what a single Terran operator could do when cornered. The pod drifted for hours. Maybe longer. Ilara passed in and out of consciousness, dreams blurring with memory. Her training, her assignments, the blood-stained tiles of a field hospital on Luna 7, the smoking ruins of Polaris Base, the laughter of a boy whose name she hadn't spoken in years. Every moment braided together into the thread that had carried her here. She thought she saw lights once, figures moving outside the pod. But when she forced her eyes open, there was only vacuum. Then, finally, sound returned. Unidentified pod. This is ESS Aegis. We are locking your signal. Stand by. She exhaled once, the breath shaky and slow. The rescue beam latched onto the pod's hull with a deep hum. Seconds later, she was being reeled toward a dorsal bay. As the hangar doors opened and warm artificial gravity pulled her down, she blacked out. She awoke on a gurney under surgical lights. The faces above her were human. Medical personnel. Real ones. Vitals are holding, one said. She's stabilizing. Neural activity is elevated. Someone get command. They didn't know who she was yet. But that would change. Ilara blinked and focused. Dominion vessel neutralized, she murmured. A pause. Then hands froze. You were on the Caranthvel? A voice asked from somewhere beyond the light. She didn't answer. Instead, she sat up. Alarms screamed. Doctors rushed to intervene, but she waved them back. Her muscles trembled, but they obeyed. I need a link to Earth Command, she said. They hesitated. She leaned forward, voice dropping to a low whisper. Apex protocol still holds. That link is not optional. They moved. 10 minutes later, a direct channel opened. The holo display flickered, revealing a steel-haired admiral in full dress uniform. His face was lined with worry, the metals on his chest strangely hollow beneath the weight of what he'd just seen. Ilara, he said. Admiral Corrin, she replied. We received your transmission. And the data burst. Every ship in orbit is on alert. The Council has reconvened. They're calling this the new contact day. It's not contact, she said. It's the opening move. He nodded slowly. We always knew they were out there. But we didn't think. No, she interrupted. You didn't want to think. So you looked away. And now we don't get that choice. He leaned back, expression grim. The Carinthvel was a scout vessel. What's left of it is being picked over by every sensor array in our reach. You stopped it. Alone. No, she said. I survived it. That's not the same thing. He looked at her carefully. Do you believe they'll send more? They won't send anything small again. They'll send fire next. They know now that Earth is not what they thought. He was silent for a long moment. Then, we need your guidance. You need soldiers, she said. Ones who don't think in lines and ranks. You need wolves. You're not a soldier anymore. Neither are they. He looked away, then back. You're not cleared for duty. I'm not asking. The silence stretched until a second figure entered the hologram's field. This one a woman with cold eyes and no insignia. Civilian. Intelligence, most likely. Ilara Voss, she said. You've just become the most dangerous asset Earth possesses. The Council will want to debrief you, contain you, possibly even isolate you. Ilara smiled faintly. They're welcome to try. There are protocols. There's only one protocol now, she said. Apex. The woman hesitated. You activated it under legitimate threat parameters. That's unprecedented. It'll be less unprecedented next time. The Admiral raised a hand. Enough. Let her speak. Ilara stood. Her frame cast a long shadow across the floor. The surgical lights dimmed behind her. I want a tactical command post. Full clearance. Satellite access. And autonomy. You're not just facing a fleet. You're facing an ideology. They don't fear destruction. They fear defeat. And you think one person can deliver that? She turned to the viewport, where the stars gleamed like waiting knives. I'm not one person, she said. I'm the reason Earth is still breathing. The room fell silent. Then the Admiral nodded. Command is yours. She didn't thank him. Instead, she walked out of the medbay and into the corridor beyond. Officers and soldiers paused as she passed. Some saluted. Others just stared. The rumors were already spreading. The human nurse who'd slaughtered an entire ship. The Terran operator who'd taken on an empire. No longer just whispers in the black. As she entered the command deck, Earth's orbital grid unfolded before her. Ships, satellites, platforms in tight formation. Defensive lines sharpened with fear and awe. And something else. A ripple at the edge of the system. Not yet a ship, but a shadow. A distortion. Subspace wake patterns. The Zarvek were coming. And this time, they'd bring everything. But Earth wouldn't be surprised again. Ilara Voss sat in the command chair. Her fingers traced the lines of the interface. Her pulse was steady. The war hadn't begun on her terms. But it would end on them. Behind her, an officer cleared his throat. What should we call the response initiative? Ilara considered it. Then replied, the Voss Doctrine. The room fell quiet. Then systems across the grid lit up in unison. They were ready. So was she. And far out in the stars, something watched. Something waited. But Earth no longer feared the dark. Because now the dark feared Earth.